А не буду с вами здороваться. Нет, поздороваюсь с теми, кто подключился только...
I'm not going to say hi. I will say hi only to those who are connected to me right now. And right now, they will speak about vulnerability management. And I think we're going to speak about that. As surprising as it may seem, but this commendation, I will speak with a beautiful girl whose name is Anastasia Zuyeva, right?
Потому что у меня в моей голове с другой фамилией.
Because you live in my head with another name.
И в ведении Насти находится...
And Nastya also has several products of positive. Max Patrol was in vulnerability management, Max Patrol 8, and Expire.
Настя, старший менеджер по продукту.
Old manager in product marketing.
Ну и, собственно, с Настей мы будем разговаривать
So together with Nastya,
про VM, только не...
we will speak about Max Patrol VM, but not exactly about that. Yes.
Скажи, пожалуйста, почему обычного сканирования...
Can you tell me, please, why regular scanning of vulnerability, because we're speaking about vulnerabilities, is not sufficient? Why? Because we've been speaking about vulnerabilities, speaking, discovering, responding, reposting. But the conversation about scanning is the first one. Well, the question is, what is the purpose of this scanning, and why do we need all of these? And during the standoff and real life, the main objective is to minimize possibility so that criminals would not penetrate into the company, and it wouldn't be too expensive, so they wouldn't do it. And everything what we do with this scanning, why do we need it? What is to be done with it? Well, we have scanned the vulnerability, and usually they scan, they specialize this vulnerability, the IT security guys in the company, then they have to close this vulnerability, IT guys. And this is the most complicated part. Informational security people live in the paradigm of vulnerability. They think how vulnerable and how critical they are for the company, and IT guys are responsible for the stability of the process. And these two systems are facing each other, and then we have to understand how can we find agreement with both of them so that in the end run, vulnerabilities would be closed, and you should close those vulnerabilities through which there's a higher probability of attacks. And how can you find agreement with them? Well, our company propagates this point of view and also share it that it's the right one. There should be two pillars. The first one is when you have regular scanning and regular patch management. This is the main thing. So in advance, together, information security with business, with IT, you agree when and which systems are being updated, when you patch them. This could be different regulations depending on the type of asset. Simply speaking, if we are talking about Windows, the Windows update every month, then IT people say, well, we need 1 week for testing, 1 week for roll it out in the organization. We know that in 2 weeks after the patch production, we should check it. Have they done it or not? 2 weeks. Isn't it too long? Depends on the organization. We have to look not at every vulnerability as the informational security, but we should look whether the regulations are followed or not. If they're followed, how systematically it happens, we should look at this. Therefore, the systems should help us to discover it. And the second pillar is when something awful has been published, something bad, something that everybody's using, and for this we have to use it. And if the first system is not available to rolling out of this update, so this is something bad, will be lost in a number of those tickets for vulnerability processing, and nobody will be able to cope with it physically. Otherwise, if we have planned process which we follow, then when something bad comes to the system, information security will pay attention to this, and of course IT guys are not going to be overloaded with tickets, but if you came to them, you have to fix it and something has to be solved about it. Well, I still don't understand how effectively can we build the process from the point of view of the team. What should be done with the team? You have to build a smart system which is going to report to them. What happens? Ask about the team. In the beginning, you should take the business, yeah, and you should ask them, what is critical to you? Which Well, during the standoff, well, business is not going to tell you about any vulnerabilities. Of course, you shouldn't ask about vulnerabilities. Well, the wheel flies away, centrifuge have stopped, and things like that. What is critical to you? Which business processes are awful? And then the information security and IT guys are looking at what in these processes, which systems participate in them, and what this particular system does to your infrastructure, what is responsible for, and they define its criticality from the point of view whether the criminal can enter through this system or not, to the perimeter, maybe it's outside, sticking outside of the perimeter, and is it a key service like 1C, which has to be protected, or maybe this is some kind of a system through which you can make an attack, and computer of chief accountant, or maybe computer of the admin of the company, so things like that. And all this has to be classified, distributed, and you have to understand what should we pay attention as a first priority, protection of which assets, and then secondary ones.
Инфраструктура.
What is in the test zone is not as important, but the infrastructure in the company is dynamic. Today you have determined the computer of the accountant, but tomorrow one has left and two arrived. Hurrah!
Следующие гости меня изо всех сил.
The previous one makes me happy, yeah.
Говорили, мы
They've been making jokes on me.
поняла. Ой, спасибо.
And even you should understand. Well, good question, I understand. Well, this is a key question because in the foundation of vulnerability management, we should have asset management and we should understand what is being protected. And in order to check this system, we should include everything that is available in the company. So it's a question to Civil Scatic. If you submit the list of IP addresses and you follow it, then as a next step, you cannot be confident that maybe suddenly you didn't know about some stuff. Maybe some IT guys have rolled something out and they have not informed you about that. So this process should be continuous, and this is really cool if vulnerability management system can upload data from other information security systems, which will add to this asset-related information. So do I properly understand you? Right now you're telling us this process that you have listed to us, it's not a story about making a person to do everything manually. No, it's a story about some technology. As for manually, you have to agree with this person, what is important to this person, and when they will patch it according to regulations. And then after these rules, vulnerability detection, inventorization, of course, the system should follow them up. And it's very cool when it helps the information security officer to make it faster and better. And how many of those systems do we have right now? Russian market, you mean?
Ну, что ж делать? Мы уже...
Well, who knows? Right now we are working on this market because, well, I will speak about my system. Okay, can you tell me how many pieces? How many of them? Well, there are different things. And we believe that vulnerability management is an advanced thing for us. Another thing that we discussed, and sometimes we discuss about vulnerabilities and vulnerability management, asset management, and I hear statements like trendy vulnerabilities and all this process that you've been discussing right now. Is it a process for regular vulnerabilities or non-regular vulnerabilities? And how these trendy are different from non-trendy, from the regular ones? Well, the process is mostly built for usual vulnerabilities, and 99.9% of vulnerabilities they should be included into this regular process. However, trendy ones, trendy brainy, we can say that they can be used by criminals in real attacks, and according to our experts, they will be used in the wild nature. And this is our experts. Our pen testers are researching them. They are looking whether they have exploits, what is the direction of the exploit, and then they select best of the best. Vulnerabilities which have to be closed first of all. But this is not just recalculation of all the discovered vulnerabilities, because we give this rating to everybody and you have to decide which of them have to be removed as fast as possible. And we have to concentrate on 100, the toughest vulnerabilities, and every team will be able to close them.
И как
and you have to work on them as fast as possible. And how the work is built with them, yes, separately. For example, if we're speaking about systems, there's a separate widget for them.
Виджет и наша система, она позволяет, ну,
And the system allows it and it remembers how they've scanned these assets, what's available in the network, and when they send database of knowledge of vulnerabilities,
применимость
they can recalculate applicability of vulnerabilities to a certain area, and we can say that on the basis of these data that you've just scanned
неделю назад есть эту уязвимость
1 week ago.
или ее нет.
Is this vulnerability available in the system or not? But you have to clearly understand that it's available, but then you can do something quickly and then you can launch additional scanning. So
Полезно в том,
this is very useful in the case, as a rule, the scanning of the infrastructure, it takes a lot of time. And of course, you have to get through to the owner of the system, you have to get permissions for this. And
нужна быстрая реакция.
speaking about this one, you need to have fast reaction to something very dangerous. And we propose to have a fast recalculation of GPS scanning. Asya,
появились
just recently,
КЦКИ, насколько
we've
я помню,
seen
как раз
recommendations of NCKI and work with vulnerabilities, and you cannot get around these recommendations because it's important and we have to live with it. So, can you tell me, please, what is your position about these recommendations and how do they fit
подход, о котором ты говоришь.
in the approach that you've been speaking about?
Рекомендации от КЦКИ,
What is our position?
рекомендации от КЦКИ, и так как они еще,
We have to follow these recommendations.
в принципе, каждая компания их может
And every company can interpret them differently and include something additional to them. There is an algorithm. And what is the main idea of this algorithm is that in order to close some vulnerability, we have to get updated. And right now, in connection with certain events, it happens that right now we have a risk that these updates
возможность.
we will have some undocumented possibilities and something might happen with the system. And we have to evaluate all the risks.
Сложнее и опаснее. То, что
What is more important and more dangerous to us? What can be attacked through this vulnerability which has not been closed? Or the fact that you have an update and something wrong can get into the system? And this is a very serious question and it's very difficult to solve it. That's why we've been offered to follow the algorithm of a solution. You look at
в каком ПО это
in which software this vulnerability is available, who is the manufacturer, who is the vendor, from which country it comes from, what is the type of vulnerability,
другого, какой
RCE or maybe something else, what is the assessment on CVSS level, where is it located, how is it influencing this particular service, where is it located, or how is it influencing the business of the company, and then you are looking at
ее устранить.
whether there's a chance of removing it, or maybe it's better to wait for a while, or you have to remove it immediately following this cycle. So basically, everything that I've been telling you before, prior to this, should follow this process. And I'm repeating myself. And what's so cool about it, speaking about our product,
Как это вышло, мы как раз
when we've looked at it, you know, we have introduced certain filters into the system which allow us to work following this algorithm. And by the way, in the next release,
фильтры, они прям были
we want for these filters to be out of the box. We have created the manual for our users. So please take these requests, build them in such a way, and that's how they should work. And week from now, we are going to present new release.
Неделю будет уже не
In a week, it's not going to be a methodological,
мы расскажем, что в
минутку
нашем
рекламы.
and we are going to tell you what's happening with this. Yes, you've been asking.
Тут глянь-ка.
Да, через неделю мы расскажем, что будет в релизе.
In 1 week, we're going to tell you what's going to be happening in the release.
Заканчивается время, но
Our time is coming to the end,
есть еще место для одного вопроса.
but we have a place for one question.
Топ-5 советов.
So, top 5 advices on how to organize effective vulnerability management. Yes, I think that you have told us about them, but let's bring it in the bullet points. Okay, I'm recording it. Everybody's recording. Number one. First of all, we are checking whether we know everything about the infrastructure, whether it's a part of something that's being checked.
позволяет средства,
If it does not allow you to use the means, then
мы как-то пытаемся
we go to IT guys and we're trying to achieve this. The second thing, we are solving with the business
самые критичные.
which are the most critical.
Что для него самое критичное, чтобы
So, what is the most critical thing in order for this to happen? Not allowable, not admissible events, inadmissible, something that should become impossible. Number three, we are looking at which services and systems are involved in these inadmissible events, and then we separate them, we'll look at them in more detail, we follow them.
мы, получается, ну, выявляем
Number four, we discover vulnerabilities. Yes, number four, we find agreement with IT guys.
системы, которые
We add to these systems that we have separated, and then afterwards we're looking at how much do they follow these regulations, and then we look at the trend all over the company.
вот топ-5 советов.
Топ-5.
How's it working? So these are 5 advices. Okay, my dear friends, you've been listening to a short course of effective vulnerability management. Manager
Из компании Positive
from Anya Zuiva from Positive Technologies. So if you want to learn something more about that, then we are going to invite you. And she was inviting you to the event. Okay, please spend about, well, maybe 30 minutes,
всё найдёт.
30 seconds ago, 1 minute ago, and you will find it. Don't switch off.
Грандиозный финал Positive.
Ahead of us, there's going to be a great final of Positive Hack Days of 2022. And I would like to tell you that this year in our conference, we had almost 6,000 people physically, and our broadcast was watched by more than 50,000 people simultaneously. Well, I welcome each one of you. Each one of these 50,000 people, and I'm saying thank you very much. Please stay with us. It's going to be much more interesting, brighter, and more interesting. We're going to speak about cyber fights.
Наверное, увидим с вами
Okay, and then we'll be able to see a music concert.